My name is Jonathan Chandler. I'm a volunteer at the Virginia School of Traditional Arts. Alright, there's what we got. This is a 60 grit belt, a new belt. Wow, this was a temper color, so it's kind of a bronze, dark straw, light brown, whatever you want to call it. And then we've taken the blade down to this, and the edge is getting fairly thin now. Not quite sharp. It's almost sharp, but not quite sharp. And so what we're going to do is we're going to switch over and do a different type of sharpening for you. Alright, I've just got me a little, like a piece of 2x6, 2x4, and I got 3 screws in it, holding my knife down and kind of locked where it won't move, and then I've got a clamp on it just to make sure it stays down. Got a couple of files, a flat file and a half round file, and we'll see which one does best. I use golf balls as handles. That works good for me. Alright, we'll finish that up, bring you back in a minute. Alright, we got our block of wood here. It's a walnut. We're going to dress up these sides. Got a 60 grit belt. And we got that pretty close. It'll be good enough for what we're doing. Basically just want one flat edge and the flat sides, and that way we can orient our blade. Got our pin stock that we're going to use, and whether you cut it with a saw or cut it with the pliers, this is thin enough you can cut it with pliers. It usually has some kind of rag on the end, so we're going to just round this on our little sander here. Get rid of any kind of make sure all of them are done. like I said, just kind of round the nose a little bit so they're going the hole easy. Back at our mill vise, our machinist vise, and we've left in our same drill bit. We haven't changed anything, so we can figure out what we want to do with the handle. And I generally find where it's the fattest, kind of, and I'll see if we can't get it to drill that. Alright, once you drill your first pin, put your first hole, put your pin in it, set your knife on top of it, and then drill through the second hole, and then we're going to pin it again. And likewise, once you get those two pins in, we're going to make sure our... That's why I like this little vise. You can take it in and out, it'll be back in the same place. Alright, that's our pinholes. Alright, we're at the bandsaw. We're going to put a couple of witness marks. So we're going to rip this, and we'd like it to go back in this same orientation. The holes aren't quite in the center of the block of wood, and that would help us line it up. But if they are exactly in the center, you just need a witness mark or two. And basically you're just drawing a couple of marks on there. When we split that apart, we drew them at an angle. If you take this side and put it over there, flip it around, the marks won't line up. So it doesn't really matter what the marks look like, just a couple of marks. Just going to do our little finger trick again and see if we can get one more mark out of this pin. It's about to give up the ghost. And all I'm looking for is a straight line, more or less. We can sand it if we have to. And we're gonna slice just on this side of that line. So there's our two blocks cut in half, more or less the same thickness. We can work on that pretty easily. We're going to flatten the cut parts, and we got a choice now. We can put them back together like that, or we can put them back together like that, and we can look at the grain once we get them flat and see what it looks like. Alright, if we did a good job of sanding, hopefully these will line up. If you sand it at an angle, like if you sand your block at an angle, this won't work well. If you drill your holes straight up and down, it's the reason I use the drill press, you can always flip them over and use the flat sides that you already had. But if you drill it at with a hand drill and you're not exactly straight, you're not going to be able to flip them around. You're going to have to use this side. And that's why you saw me flipping the board around over at the sander. Was everybody pushes harder one side or the other. I'm right-handed, so my thumb's going to push harder than my fingers usually. Usually I'm going to push harder at the top than the bottom. So by me rotating that, I was rotating on the same side, the side we sanded. By me rotating that, I'm trying to eliminate any of those flaws that I'm putting in there by being a person. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over and just polish up our brass here a little bit with the vibrating sander. I'm not going to show you that, but we'll just run it on there for just a second or two and just knock off any corrosion, get them as smooth and so they'll go in the holes easy, and then we'll bring you back. Alright, we got our pieces polished up. I noticed this one was not fitting in our hole very well. Well, when I rolled it, it's bent, it's bopping, so we'll get rid of that one. Alright, this is where our witness marks come into play. I don't know if y'all can see that on the camera or not, but there's our witness marks. And so we're going to start with the center hole. We're just going to push this through. Push that through. And since we have our witness marks, we know that when we cut it apart, that's what two sides are on the inside now. And so we're just going to continue on with our assembly. We'll stick the front pin through. Probably get them all going from the same side to help. So there's our front pin. And our last little pin needs a little encouragement, which is okay. We want them to be tight. But that's our pin material together. The next step is to take this apart and to draw the outside shape of the handle with using the metal on both pieces, and then we'll just either, depends on what it is, if it's a little bit we can sand it, if it's a lot we'll saw it. But at this point our handle is on there, and you can see that one side's a little thicker than the other. Like I said, that's not an issue. I cut it plenty wide enough. This side is closer to what I want anyway, so we're going to have to sand on this side right much. And what I like to be able to do is take the pins and shove them one way and sand on it, and the other way and sand on it. I don't glue the pins in when I'm sanding the handle. I want them to be movable, and that's why I leave them long in case they get stuck or I have problems. I can get a hold of them with either the pliers or even the vise sometimes and pull them out. And because you can't really beat on this thing a whole lot, it's brass, it'll swell up, and then you'll have a rivet. But anyway, that's where our knife is at this point. Looks pretty good. We've sanded on this right much with our vibrating sander, our half sheet sander, and it's not sharp, but it's getting pretty darn close. In just a few stripes we can have her pretty sharp, and get a nice start on our handle. So we're going to stop here for the moment. Our knife taken apart, we've got we're going to put us a mark on the inside pieces, and we're going to put our two halves together with our witness marks, and we're going to stick a pin down in here, and we're going to stick the knife on it. Alright, we got a couple of pins in this thing. That ought to be good enough for the moment anyway. We'll draw our outline. And our handle is pretty close to what it needs to be. No need to make it huge and just sand off a bunch of stuff. And so now if we pull our pins back out, you can see our handle shape. And we're going to put the pins back in, and we're going to go and cut out this shape and sand it a little bit, get it closer to the line, not quite to the line, and we'll work on the front. Alright, all I did was go with the bandsaw and just cut just a teeny bit off and rounded this back side. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to make these two pieces similar thickness. We're going to make the fatter one match the skinnier one basically at this point. And we can do that. We got to sand on the outside part, not where our inside parts are working out for us, so we don't want to sand on those anymore. Help us with this a little bit. We're going to set this up. And what we're doing is we're putting the insides, this side with this mark on it, down on the table. And we're going to just draw a little bit of a line. And this will let us have some indication of what needs to go and where. And the back's about right. So we can see that line a little bit. This dark walnut's hard to draw a line on. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So we're just going to take you over to the sander and whip that up. Alright, there you go. That's more like it. More like it, more like it. Alright, that's pretty good all the way around. If we start out with them similar thickness now, when we glue them on and go to shaping them, it makes shaping them a lot more, lot easier. You can see what you're doing. If one's fatter or skinnier, then it's much more difficult to get them the right thickness when they're on the knife, because you cannot do what we're doing, which is laying them down and checking them. Alright, and now we're going to put it back together with the knife in it. And work on this front a little bit. We're going to taper this front just slightly. That's kind of what we got. Try to make it look even both sides, both ends. And I lost a little bit of a chip out of that, so I just went ahead and sanded it off now. It's easier to do now. And we're going to stick her back on the knife and see what it looks like. All right. Now we're checking for fit along this edge and along this edge and around the back. So if we look at that, it looks pretty good. We want to squeeze it to make sure that when we clamp it, it's getting any gaps out, if there's any little gap in there or not. And so that's what our front of our knife will look like. If we don't like that, this is the time to change it. If this is crooked or misshapen in any way, I think that will do for us for now. And next step is we'll glue that on.